We've hit 6 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen, and I see Supervisor Stika has joined. I am going to turn the meeting over to him, and he should be popping up on everyone's front screen here momentarily.
Can you all see me yet?
I'm seeing lots of nods.
Do we have all the board members? Who do we have here? Clerk. Okay. All right, everybody's there, I see. So we'll call the meeting to order. And we will say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we now have the roll call, Mr. Clerk, and you're on mute.
Thank you. Supervisor Stika.
I am here.
Clerk Dreyfus is present. Treasurer DeShane.
Here.
Trustee Jackson.
Present.
Trustee Opsimer.
Here.
Trustee Sunland.
Here.
And Trustee Wazinski.
Here.
All 7 board members are present.
Very good. We now go on to our presentations, and the first one, the coronavirus task force update. We have our fire chief here.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
There he
Supervisor.
is. Okay.
Thank you, Supervisor Steichen. It's good to see everybody again. It's hard to believe we're in the 7th week of the coronavirus pandemic. Lots of changes that have happened across the country and locally here, and even this obvious early operation. We look forward to someday reopening and back to whatever the new norm may be. First thing I wanted to do is thank a lot of people from the community for a lot of the resources they've helped us with masks and suits and all kinds of stuff, including food for police, fire, for the responders. It's really amazing to see the community come together and work together. Also wanted to thank the community for all they've done to self-isolate, wear masks, and just maintain the requirements that have come down just so we can get through this. Definitely help. Not an easy thing, but everybody's done a great job. A couple things I want to kind of throw out there. So the burn ban was lifted at the middle of last week, just so everybody out there in the world can start burning again in Out County and things like that. Manager Walsh received a call on the COVID hotline today with a question. First off, I want to remind people that there is a COVID hotline. It's 517-853-4040. And the resident asked a question about what do our numbers look like in Meridian Township? So for people who have the COVID-19. So there is a website that Ingham County has. You can go by zip code. And so for Meridian Township and Hazlet, basically they have us between 41 and 50 individuals, less than 1% of our total residents. So if anybody wants to look at that, that is on Ingham County's website, and it is their COVID-19 dashboard. Lists all kinds of information above and beyond the zip code that answers that question. Deputy Director Perry, HR Director Marks, and Chief Plaga, myself, and Frank Walsh, and many others have been working on a reopening plan. Deputy Director Perry has been working on that. Just lots of little things to try to get to a new norm when we are able to open up our doors, so we can continue to protect our citizens and all the township employees when we do open. Lots to come there. So whatever that new norm will look like, we're gonna follow it. So just some last couple things of thank you just for this whole 7 weeks. Been a lot of changes, a lot of learning experiences. Obviously, for me, unlike many of you, this is we've never dealt with anything in our lives. But people on the front line for Meridian, Manager Walsh, Deputy Director Perry, Chief Plaga, HR Director Marks, and even Brandy Yates in communications done a great job trying to keep the citizens informed of everything going on. And then many others within the township that have really been out there trying to work through the new norm and keep the citizens informed, and just we're going to get through this, and we're going to make it, and everything's going to be good, and we're going to move on. That's really all I have. If there's any questions that I can answer.
Any questions for Mr. Hamel? Yes, Mr. DeShane.
Yes, Chief, first of all, I want to thank you for providing the main town hall with supplies, gloves and masks. Everyone is wearing them and been wearing the gloves for weeks now, and the masks in the past week. So thank you for that. The question is along those same lines. Where do we stand with our inventory of personal protection equipment and supplies? What's our current inventory, and do you foresee or have you had any problems keeping a full inventory of the personal protection?
So for the fire department, we purchased quite a lot over the last 7 weeks. Early on in March, well, mostly April, early April, we purchased quite a lot. We have a good supply, and I some extra that Derek, Mr. Perry, will be using with the his public service employees, and then even other employees in the township, so we can make sure that people that are required to wear masks and have them. So right now for the fire department, we have good supply of stock. I believe police does too, and if they need more, we have some that we can supply them. We've had donations on top of what we bought. So as of right now, we're doing pretty good with our personal protective equipment.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anyone else have a question for the chief? Yes, Clerk Treffin.
That figure you gave earlier, you mentioned Hazlet. Was it just Hazlet, or is it Hazlet, Okemos, and the entire community in terms of 40 to 50 people?
Yeah, so on the map, they've got, you can go by zip code, but if you just click on, Meridian Township and Okemos are looped together on the same map, and that's showing 41 to 50. Hazlet's showing 1 to 10. So
Okay.
That's, I'm saying right around 50 is probably where we're at.
Great. Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Anyone else for the chief? Well, thank you, Chief, and thank you for what all of your hardworking crew is doing out there every day. All of them, keep up the good work.
And one more thing, if I may, I should add that police and fire are all doing really good. We haven't had nobody test positive. We have sent a few people to get tested, but everything's been good. And then lastly, just keep your prayers for, there's a lot of firefighters and police officers across the country that have been infected, have even passed. So, keep them in your prayers. And again, we look forward to someday getting back to whatever the new norm is and move on in life.
Thank you. Our next item is a report on Celebrate Meridian. Do we have somebody here ready to make that report?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Good evening, Supervisor Stika and board members. I just wanted to circle back around. I know we spoke at the last meeting about postponing Celebrate Meridian and until later this year. And I just wanted to throw out some different ideas that I had for possible implementation, because we're not really sure, what our future holds here for the end of the summer. But some of the ideas are, let's try to focus on like jump starting our local business and our business community and really encourage them maybe to participate and set up booths where people could take orders or they could sell things. And then and instead of all the food trucks, maybe we work on highlighting our local restaurants and let them be the people providing the food. And let's highlight local talent. And so I know there's at least 2 bands of people in Meridian Township, as well as School of Rock and the dance studios. And let's activate all those people and get them involved. And that is what Celebrate Meridian should be all about. So I think really sometimes this could be a good thing coming out of all of this bad stuff. And if we can't get everyone together, if getting people together in groups isn't a thing by the end of the summer, maybe there's smaller, more satellite activities that we could host, like canoe and kayak trips down the river, bicycle tour on our bicycle pedestrian pathway and through our parks, or maybe people go to different stops for certain things. So I think there's like a lot of things that we can do other than what we traditionally have thought of for Celebrate Meridian. So my staff, we've been working on creating things, Parks and Recreation, you're very creative folks, and you have to make adjustments and amendments, and and we're working on that. For instance, at the Nature Center, since there's a lot of homeschooling going on, they're kind of working on putting together some toolkits for parents with grade appropriate curriculum-based activities that maybe parents would purchase to be able to do fun activities at home and learn that would follow the curriculum. Another possibility for a reopening, we're of course working on a reopening plan at the Nature Center, that maybe there's more private lessons of families that would come in and learn about nature and wildlife and stewardship and those kinds of things versus the group activities. So there's all sorts of things that we're thinking of moving forward. We are also working toward trying to reopen the farmers market in the mall parking lot, where we can spread out all the vendors and have wider aisles. And so we're working on protocols right now for the vendors as well as for customers. So hopefully on Saturday, May 16th, we're going to get that open and give that a try. So we are working to reopen and strategies for that. But for Celebrate Meridian, I just think maybe we could do, like I said, even if it's different weekends and we do different smaller activities to kind of reactivate and jumpstart our economy here in Meridian Township. So anyway, the reason I wanted to share all that with you is because the more minds that can get together with all of this, I think the better it will be. So we do have some time. And so if anybody has any additional ideas or thoughts, I'm sure Director Lane now can help connect me with business community too, and really kind of make it a celebration about them and how do we promote our local businesses and as well as our recreation facilities here in the township. So that's kind of the line that I'm thinking of moving towards. So if anybody has any thoughts or anything, I'd be happy to hear them now, or call me or send me some thoughts via email.
It sounds like a lot of good brains working hard to come up with something new and different and kind of exciting. I don't want to put anybody's toes, but there's the Taste of Okemos every year. So this
Right.
is kind of a neat thing to have all the restaurants participate as a way to help them with their comeback, maybe send a message.
Right.
Here, we're working, we're available. Anybody else have anything they want to discuss with Luann before we move on? Yes, Pat.
So, Director Maisner, are you suggesting that rather than canceling the Celebrate Meridian event, which is scheduled for the last of May, I believe?
June 27th.
Oh, June 27th.
Yeah.
That we consider postponing or instead of eliminating it?
Yes. Yeah, I think we still need to do something to get people back engaged and activated. And it may not be in the large groups that we're used to providing those services in, but I think there's some other ways that we're going to try. And I guess we'll kind of wait and see. And if we can bring people back together later this year, we can move forward with that mode. I don't have high hopes for that at this point, but I think there's definitely some ways that we can re-engage people in the public.
You'll recall that at our last meeting, we actually determined to postpone it from the June 27th, and we're aiming at perhaps a Labor Day time frame roughly, but didn't put anything in stone. Mr. Dreyfus, did you have your hand up? You're still muted.
Yes. I think it's a great idea, Luann, to actually focus on Meridian residents, Meridian food establishments. And that's a good way to go. I know the food trucks were super popular the first year. It brought out, lots and lots of people from the whole greater Lansing area and around, which is still a really cool thing. But focusing on celebrating our own businesses is really a good way to go too. And it sort of reinvigorates after we get out of this whole situation, that coming together that you were talking about. So I think it's a good direction that you're looking at.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would just add that I think your many ideas presented are very good ones, and I look forward to seeing them possibly implemented while we still have great weather.
Yes, for sure.
Yes, Treasurer.
I too think this is an excellent idea to bring in local restaurants and local talent. Restaurants will need this shot in the arm, and many people bemoan the lack of good restaurants in the area, but we actually have many. People may not know about them. This will bring those to the forefront. It's a great idea, and we've got lots of local talent. So it'll be a reworking of Celebrate Meridian, hopefully lower cost and more locally focused, and that's an excellent idea. But thanks for bringing these good ideas to the board.
You're welcome.
Yeah, same thing with those ideas about the tables being, local businesses selling things, that sort of. Okay, anyone else then? Well, thank you very much, Luann. Excellent.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate the report. And Mr. Geebies, do we have any citizens?
We have not put out the telephone number yet, so we'll do that really quick. If there's somebody who would like to make a comment via telephone, we can take the comments at 517-349-1232. And tonight, we're also prepared to take comments via Zoom. If there's somebody in the virtual attendee audience who would like to make a public comment, they can use the raise hand button on their toolbar, and we can call on them in good order. But again, if they'd like to make telephone comment, the number to do that is 517-349-1232. And I'll let you remind people how we handle public comments during the meeting.
Well, it's just as we do in a meeting that occurs in the Township Board meeting room. The comments are limited to 3 minutes. They will be timed. You'll be let know that your time is up. You have to name who you are, your address, etc. We're hoping that your comments will be directed to our agenda, although you can bring up other things. And you would address the board as a whole, not any individual, and not others who might be in attendance or not in attendance out in the audience. And those are the basic rules. Be nice, say things politely.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm seeing no raised hands in the attendees, and I'm not hearing any calls coming in on that line. So I think you're good to move forward. And of course, we will take comments later in the meeting one more time, either via the raise hand feature or that phone number I'll give out it the last time, 517-349-1232. Thank you very much, sir.
Just out of curiosity, Mr. Geebies, do you have that phone number on the screen on the television broadcast?
Looking right now.
Or if,
yes, that number is on the screen on the broadcast, both on Comcast Channel 21.
okay.
It's also going out over Swagit, Facebook Live, and all of the live methods. That telephone number is available.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
You just said we will have near the end of the meeting another opportunity for people to give us their 3 minutes worth. All right, we now go on to the township manager and his report. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and board members. Right now, we're working on, Director Maisner mentioned the farmers market. I'm not sure if I heard her say about the schedule, but schedule, they're starting back up this week, and we'll get going on that. We don't know a timeline at this time. We're working on the Toys R Us building still with Home Depot. Director Lane is really engaged on that, and I appreciate that. As you know, we have a company that wants to go into Toys R Us. There's some issues with Home Depot. We're working on that. I did get an email as of 5 o'clock that Home Depot wants to talk on Friday morning. So we'll hopefully that brings about a good outcome. We're also working on the reopening process that Chief Hamill mentioned. We've got a lot of ideas that we're looking at. I'll save those for another day. We don't know whether that's going to be May 18th or is that going to be June 1st. We don't know at this time. We'll have to wait and see what happens. One thing we do know is that we're going to be like other Michigan communities and actually communities throughout this country. We're going to be hit very hard financially. Some communities are already taking some pretty drastic action. We are going to see, according to the department, these are not numbers we're pulling out of the sky or what were considered layman numbers. These numbers came from the Department of Treasury, who knows a whole lot about what we should expect. And they're telling us to expect about a 1.1, this is what they told Director Madison, to expect about a $1.1 million loss between now and the end of the year in revenue sharing. And then you also have building fees that will be reduced as well. Then there's the big elephant in the room, and that is the loss in pension and the loss in retiree health care. We have two pension funds, as you know, MERS and the township. We have a retirement health fund for healthcare. We are not addressing those at this time, although many would argue that we maybe should address those at this time. We are setting those aside and dealing with just the immediate loss of about $1.5 million between now and the end of the year. So we've been working internally on it. And as you know, the board's been kept abreast of this all along. But we're working on a realignment plan to how do we deal with $1.5 million reduction in revenue between now and the end of the year. So what we've done is we've taken a look at 5 positions that we have, and I won't go through all of those, but 5 positions that we're not filling. We've looked at eliminating 2 positions, which occurred on Friday. 1 job elimination, 1 layoff. And keep in mind, we employ about 165 employees full time. And then, of course, we are benefiting financially. And I would argue our communications department, Brandy, is doing an excellent job in there, but we've also had the downsize in the communications department. So if you take a look at all that, those savings coupled with what the board will consider at their next meeting, and that is our capital projects for 2020 and traveling and a couple of other items. If you add all that together, and again, this only affects 2 out of our 165 employees, we can handle what's coming our way for the rest of the year. Now, I'm not dealing with pension and healthcare at this time. That will come with the 2021 budget. But rest assured that we will deal with this. I remember Citizen Bowlby, back when we did the millage. Citizen Bowlby asked me, and I won't forget this question because it was a pretty good one. He said, what will you do if there's extra revenue that comes when you pay off, he really thinks forward. He said, there's going to come a time when you've paid off your ladder truck in 4 years. What do you do with that extra funds? And I said, in my opinion, everything we do should be put towards pension at that time. And he said, that's the right answer. Because really, the millage that was passed in 2017 had a lot to do with pension. So pay down your debt first. And that was a Citizen Bowlby a question that he brought up at that time, and I won't forget that. So if you take a look at what departments have been affected by the realignment, the planning department by 1, the parks department by 1, the finance by 1, assessing through a reassignment only, engineering 2, communications 3, IT 1, and police 1. And so if you add all that up together, that realignment, coupled with if we don't move forward with capital projects and we don't spend any money on travel this year, that comes up to just over $1 million. And then the rest of it, getting to the $1.5 million in the losses, would be taken out of our rainy day fund. And our rainy day fund is in really, it's in good shape. We won't know exactly where we're at until we get our audit back, which should come in June. So we'll really know where we're at. I believe this realignment gets us through 2020. I believe that the rainy day fund that we've built up over the last few years will help us deal with the pension issue and the healthcare issue that's coming as well. So while many communities across Michigan scatter to find out how they're even going to survive this, let alone pay off their debt, we are going to get through this. And I believe at the end of the day, we'll more than make our pension payments, we'll more than make our retiree healthcare payments, and we will not have to adjust our employment beyond what we've done right now. So that's the total realignment plan that's been implemented. The only thing that we can't implement as administration is the decision on the capital projects, travel, anything that comes to what is funded and what's not, separate from employment, is really up to the board. It's a policy discussion. So we'll have all that before you at the next meeting. And then also the hotline, we've reached 104 calls on the hotline now. Again, 853-4040. We had an interesting call today about the number of people affected, as Chief Hamill mentioned. Finally, I'd like to conclude my report by introducing a special guest this evening. Chief Plaga, I believe that you have the floor, and you probably have the biggest announcement of the night, perhaps.
Thank you, Manager Walsh, Supervisor Steiger, board members. I'm here this evening to make an introduction of our newest member. K9 Aries joined us 2 weeks ago, along with Officer Blaine Anderson, who's begun his training, K9 training. They're 2 weeks into their 5-week training. And so I wanted to have them come in, and Blaine is here with Aries and introduce them to the board, just like we would with any other member of our law enforcement team. So without further ado, see if we can do this.
You guys can see me here, a little crazy today. Oh, it's back on there. Thank you for having me. First off, it's an honor for you guys to give me this opportunity to serve not only you guys, but the community here. Like Chief said, we're 2 weeks just starting our into training, got another 3 weeks left. Aries is doing great. When all this passes over, you guys are more than welcome to meet him. He's super friendly with people, super friendly with dogs, loves little kids. Like I said, thank you again for the opportunity. It really means a lot. Hope I can bring a positive light down with the township with him and help out in other ways with him by my side.
So I know.
Can Aries bark a hello for us, or?
Sometimes you don't come to. He's kind of quiet. We haven't worked on his bark command yet. That's next week. So he usually just has his ball and or just sits quietly in the back of the car. He's not a big barker. So
That's good, actually.
That
Interrupted you, Ken.
I haven't barked in my ear all day.
That concludes my report, Supervisor Steiger, unless you or any board members have any questions. Thank you.
Well, there may be some questions for the chief or his trusty assistants there. Anybody have anything they want to know about Aries or anything else? Ms. Jackson.
Yes, I'm getting some cutout from Chief Plaga. So would you repeat the name of the officer that's comes with Aries?
It's Officer Blaine Anderson. Blaine was for a few years, and he was selected out of 4 applicants to be the K9 handler.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? What type of pedigree does Aries have?
Well, Supervisor, you'd like to know that Aries is a German Shepherd, but he was bred in Poland. He came from Poland. The trainer, we purchased from the trainer, and they go to Europe to buy their dogs, and this dog actually was purchased in Poland.
Ah, so he would understand Yak Shamash.
He very well may.
Which means hello, how are you? All right. Anyone else on that? If not, Manager Walsh, did you say you're done with your report? Yes. All right, we now move on to board member reports of activities and announcements. Board members. Treasurer.
Thank you, Supervisor. Pleased to announce that meetings are resuming, both in the township level and the community level. All of them meeting much as we are, or exactly as we are with Zoom or a similar tool like that. In April, I attended 3 meetings of both the Rotary and the Kiwanis Club, and both clubs have reached out to Okemos and Hazlet schools and offered to provide any technology assistance, Chromebooks or hotspots, any of their low-income families may need. And so those offers are open. We want to make sure that kids at home with a new way of learning for the rest of the school year have the tools they need. This past Monday, I attended the Downtown Development Authority meeting, got an update on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on our Village of Okemos project. As you might guess, it's not good news, but I'll let the member of that, Supervisor Steiger, say more about that meeting. I'm pleased to announce our Economic Development Corporation will be meeting this Thursday, May 7th at 7:30 via Zoom. And the BRA, Brownfields Redevelopment Authority, and the Transportation Commission will be meeting on Monday, May 21st, one in the morning, one in the evening. The BRA will be looking at an application for brownfields relief for the Hazlet Road Marathon Station, which has been a redevelopment effort this board's been focused on for 3 years now. I'd also like to take a moment to speak to our residents who might be watching and thank them for observing the governor's order for essentially a lockdown, social distancing, wearing of masks, etc. I've been out for a few essentials and in stores and around, and I've noticed that people are wearing masks, particularly the past week. They are giving the social distance, and even taking walks, I find that people will give, if the sidewalk isn't 6 feet wide, they move off to the shoulder. So people are taking this very seriously. You know, at the national level, there's this attempt to say this crisis is over, but our residents and people in the know that we have got many, many months ahead of us to get through this pandemic, and it's still life-threatening. And I'm really pleased to say our residents get that, understand that, and they're observing all the safety rules they can. And I think that is reflected in the fact that our numbers, while still significant at around 50, are lower than they could be if people weren't following these guidelines. So hats off to our residents who are doing the best to cope and be smart during this pandemic. That's all I have for now.
Clerk Dreyfus.
Thank you. I'm following up on a item that I mentioned several board meetings ago, prior to the March 10th presidential primary. We were notified, the clerk's office was notified by Stephen Cook, the Hazlet superintendent, that 3 precincts will be unavailable to use the polling locations due to construction at 3 schools. And I had a conversation with Mr. Cook last week, and we confirmed that, in fact, even with the delays in construction, still planning to move ahead. I've been working on that issue and came up with a proposal to consolidate 2 precincts at the Hazlet Gymnasium, which is adjacent in the same building as the Hazlet Library. And then those 2 precincts would be located there, and a 3rd precinct would be co-located here in the Meridian Township Town Hall room, along with Precinct 6. That proposal has been made to Mr. Cook. He is looking into it, and I'm waiting to hear back from him. And if we get the go-ahead, that will be the direction we'll be moving in. That will be brought before the Elections Commission for approval, and then we would move forward with that. Our requirement is we have to have this in place 60 days prior to the election, so our deadline is June 4th to have this in place.
Thank you. Other board members, do you have any reports of activities? Yes, Jackson. You're muted, Pat. You're muted. There you go.
Okay. On the, I believe it was the 21st, actually, I attended a regular meeting of the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission. And that was held by a virtual meeting such as this. At that time, we needed to transfer projects to the TIP program so that the region could participate in the governor's update of transportation projects I believe they've already started back working on her bridge and local roads project in the township. And so we had to vote and approve those projects. And I too attended the DDA meeting on Monday.
Board members, reports. Mr. Opsimer.
Update for the public. The board received an email regarding this from CATA, but CATA has resumed a partial fixed route service. The details vary by route. You can go to cata.org if you want to get riding information. And in compliance with the executive order, if you don't have a mask, you cannot ride. And residents who are boarding a bus are encouraged to use the rear door to cut down on coming within 6 feet of the driver. So please exit and enter the bus at the rear doors. That's all I have this evening.
Okay. Anyone else, Scott? I have a few items. As you've already heard from some board members, it's becoming a virtual one and people are having meetings. So we're almost getting back to a new normal. On the 15th, I attended the Chamber of Commerce's monthly session that they have jointly with East Lansing and Meridian, and gave a report on what's been going on in Meridian and heard from businesses on what they've been doing. Unfortunately, not as much as they usually do with the shutdowns. On the 24th, I attended a session that our Congresswoman Slotkin has every week or so with leaders of the various communities throughout her representative district in 3 counties, and heard from the various county leaders as to what's been going on. Meridian, of course, is doing extremely well. We're on the cusp of all the different things you hear from other communities. We either have been or are continuing to do. And then on the 27th, I sat in on the Planning Commission. They're back in action. On the 27th, they had a meeting, virtual meeting. They didn't get into any proposals or projects, but they did spend a lot of time talking about various aspects of the form-based code, including an area that's dear to all of our hearts, parking, and what requirements should be for parking. And then lastly, as was mentioned by a couple other board members, on the 4th, just yesterday actually, the Downtown Development Authority met virtually and did its business, and we heard a report from the key developer in terms of downtown Okemos. And of course, because of the financial situation that's arisen as a result of the coronavirus, they're kind of in limbo right now. They don't necessarily have the financing that they need to move forward, but the project remains on the books. They're continuing to look for it and hoping that as things free up and things change, they're going to be able to get back on track. But realistically, they're going to be a couple years behind where they originally thought. Right now, they would hope to have buildings being put up. Of course, that's not happening. And so that's disappointing, but we should not give up hope. As the finances of the world improve, they are planning on finding the money and moving forward with that project. Nothing has been given up. That's all I have. Anybody else for a last report? All right, then we will move on to the approval of the agenda. By the way, the agenda, you should have gotten it from Mr. Dreyfus just, I think, yesterday. It includes a 12G, the resolution on older Americans, and so make sure you're working off the right one. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Opsimer,
Support.
supported by Ms. Jackson. Any further changes or actions needed with regard to the agenda? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, raise your hands, I should say. I can see them. I see everybody's hand. Okay, good. 7-0. After the agenda. All right, we now move on to the consent agenda. And we have 4 items, 4 categories: communications, the minutes of April 14th's virtual regular meeting, the bills, and then lastly, the treasurer giving a report. By the way, Phil, I was going to mention, don't you usually give those quarterly? It seems like we're getting one almost every month. Just curiosity.
Yeah, I have increased the frequency of that. I've gotten a number of calls from people asking about things. And so I thought during this crisis of short sorts, it's better to provide more information than less. We've had
All
a
right,
couple of
I'm just
changes.
curious, because normally we don't see that except maybe, 4 or 5 times a year. All right, does somebody want to move to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. DeShane and supported by, who was that?
Support?
Okay, Mr. Obser. All right, we're gonna have to do everything more or less by roll call because of being on this virtual system. Is there any discussion or need to take anything off of the consent agenda? All right, then could you do a roll call, Mr. Dreyfus? You're on mute.
I know it automatically defaults to mute. Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
Trustee Jackson,
Yes.
Trustee Opsimer,
Yes.
Trustee Sunland,
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Clerk Dreyfus votes yes, and Supervisor Stika
Votes yes. Very good.
passes.
So we have
unanimously.
seven yeses then. All right, thank you. We now have a hearing. There's no questions for attorneys, so we do have a hearing. Newton Road Sanitary Sewer Public Improvement,
Check the
SAD,
times. 6:30.
number 54, resolution number 4.
Good evening, Supervisor.
There's Mr. Perry. How are you?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
And good evening, everyone. Back in the summer of 2019, we were approached by a property owner on Newton Road across from the park there, just north of Lake Lansing, inquiring about the extension of sanitary sewer. Their septic field was failing. They were trying to sell their home. So we essentially about the special assessment district, how that all works. And the board decided to move forward with that. After we received bids in, I think it was October, prices came back higher than what the initial cost estimates were. We approached the property owners that would be impacted, and they did agree that they still wanted to move forward. So at that point, the board moved forward with Resolution 3. We've had the first public hearing. This Resolution 5 tonight essentially would be the final setting of the assessments. And before we do that, though, we do need to have the second public hearing to hear comment on that. Just before I turn it back over, we did receive 2 letters from 2 property owners impacted by that yesterday. The clerk's office was able to get those in your packets. Hopefully you had a time to review those, but we did reach out to those property owners. One concern was the increase in price, which typically we do see that a lot with the special assessment districts. And we reminded them that, back in earlier in the year, we advised them of those cost increases. And that's why we moved forward with it. And the second concern is the restoration of the properties, which again, we assured them that that would be completed once the weather's appropriate. And of course, once the stay home, stay safe order is lifted too, so those contractors could actually perform that work. So I just wanted to make sure that those letters were entered in the public record as part of the special assessment. So that's all I have, unless the board has any questions. Again, I'd turn it over to the public hearing portion.
Quick clarification. In our actual agenda, it says on the hearing, it says resolution number 4, but then later on under action, it has resolution number 5. Is this hearing deal with number 5 or?
So resolution 4 was already passed by the board, which actually set the second resolution.
So this
that's
language
what
should,
it's referencing. Yeah.
it's today, resolution
Referencing the
5.
public hearing. And then for action would be resolution 5 to finalize the assessments.
Okay. All right, I will open the public hearing. Mr. Geebies, do we have anybody that wants to participate in the public hearing?
Once again, we'll remind people who are in the attendee group that they have on their toolbar a raise hand button. And if they press that, we'll see that on our side and we will enable you to participate in public comment via that method. Otherwise, we can take public comment via telephone. The telephone number 517-349-1232. We're seeing no raised hands in the attendee portion of the meeting. And we'll pause for about 15 to 20 seconds for that telephone one more time, 517-349-1232.
While we're paused, I will mention to the treasurer that I didn't give him time to actually give the report that was in the consent agenda, so we'll do it at the end in your last comments.
That's fine. That works for me.
Okay.
And we're hearing no telephones ringing at this time, so we will state the number one more time and remind people that they can, of course, make public comment once more at the end of the meeting, 517-349-1232. Thank you very much.
Okay, I guess at this point, I will close the public hearing. Right, have you got the times on these? Okay. All right, we will now move on to the action items. And the first one is zoning amendment number 20020 from the Township Board, multiple family zoning districts, final adoption. Mr. Keys, yes, Mr. Opsmer.
I move to adopt the resolution approving zoning amendment number 20020 to allow a mix of single-family, detached, and multiple family dwellings in the RDD, RD, RC, and RCC multifamily zoning districts.
Support.
Supported by Ms. Wazinski. Is Mr. Kieselbach want to say anything about these?
Just good evening, board members. Just that this ordinance, again, was recommended by the Planning Commission. What it does is going to give us more diversity in the housing types that are allowed in the township, especially in multiple family. We've seen developers and the public interested in having this type of housing included in multiple family projects. So it allows us another tool for development.
Mr. Opsmer, did you want to speak on behalf of your motion?
Just briefly to say, obviously, this has been before us a handful of times now from the origin in which staff discovered the need for this amendment to the ordinance for the Newton Point project. It's actually it's a good amendment in the sense that when we developed our multifamily zoning categories and our MUPUD process, we hadn't even contemplated the fact that someone would build a single family residential detached homes. Basically, we are just allowing for those single family detached homes to go into these both parcels that have been zoned under these multifamily categories that otherwise would not be able to. So it's actually a very unlikely but good amendment that we're having to make way for this project. And hopefully we'll see more of it in the future. Thank you.
Anyone else want to have talk about this matter before we adopt it? Ms. Jackson.
I just add that I'm very enthusiastic about supporting this change in our zoning code, and I find very positive the idea of mixing housing types and opportunities in different zoning districts.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, then we're ready for a vote. Mr. Clerk.
Trustee Jackson,
Yes.
trustee Opsimer,
Yes.
trustee Sunland,
Yes.
trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
supervisor Stika,
Yes.
clerk Dreyfus votes yes, treasurer DeShane.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dreyfus. All right, we're now moving on to 12B, which is the medical marijuana ordinance amendment for introduction. I'm going to make that motion, and we can talk about it. I know it takes time for people to find them on their screen. I cheat, I have paper here.
I can make the motion. I'm sorry.
Now go ahead, Dan.
Just one moment here.
So move to adopt.
I move to adopt a resolution approving the amendment of Chapter 40 of the Code of Ordinances, commercial medical marijuana facilities.
Support.
Supported by Ms. Jackson. Do you want to talk about it, Dan?
Yeah, so I was unfortunately not able to make it for the discussion on this item at the previous meeting, but this dates back to, oh wait, did you say me or Mark? I'm sorry.
No, you're correct.
Okay. This kind of dates back to late last year when we discovered some shortcomings in the ordinance, namely the fact that by using the SUP, the special use permit process for opening these facilities, we did not require a date certain by which, or a number of days certain by which an applicant would have to correct deficiencies within their special use permit application. We foresaw that with the original application to get into the lottery. We kind of overlooked it because the SUP is an established process in the township. And we're unfortunately in the situation where we do have an applicant that is not correcting their special use permit deficiencies and is sitting on their application and not proceeding forward. So, and it kind of dovetails into other areas of the ordinance. I think Matt has done a good job in drafting the language here. There's only one outstanding issue that I see that I think needs a little bit further discussion. The language on page 6 that Matt made, allowing for the director to invalidate someone who is repetitively applying for the same failed parcel or property is good, but we're still in a situation which we experienced with our first lottery. So we did the lottery in September, and then our ordinance, unbeknownst to me, and I think the entire board, because we never discussed it, our ordinance had a provision in it that said the lottery results expire on December 31st of each year. So we held a lottery on September 23rd. Those results expire on December 31st. Yet, you know, for every overlay district, we drew a lottery order for every applicant. So if we had 7 applicants or 9 applicants, I think it was, for like the Home Depot and Central Park, Grand River, Marsh Road overlay, all 9 applicants were drawn in order and given a lottery pick. But of course, there was really no point to doing that because in the end, there was never even going to be a circumstance in which we moved on to applicant 2, unless the applicant just chose not to apply for their special use permit within the 60 days required. Which obviously it's a lot easier for them to apply for the special use permit than it is to apply to get into the lottery. So I can't foresee that ever happening. So right now, the way that we've amended the ordinance, we're in a similar circumstance because we require the applicant to apply for the SUP within 60 days. And then if they have deficiencies, they get another 30 to correct it. So you're at about 90, 95 days at that point. But and then they get a year from the point that they're approved for their special use permit. They have a year to then open if it's a built site or commence construction if it's not a built site. But the ordinance in the amendment still has the lottery expiring 1 year after. So it's still inconceivable that the number 2 applicant is ever going to be selected. It would have to be that an applicant applied for the lottery, paid their $5,000, and then just chose not to submit a special use permit application, which I can't possibly foresee that ever occurring. So what I had proposed at our meeting previously was keeping the lottery results active for 2 years, which would at least give us the ability to use that lottery option, a second lottery option, in the event that it's a built site and they fail to open. So that's the one outstanding issue that I currently see with the ordinance as it's before us for introduction.
Did you have a proposed language change you wanted to make a motion on, or?
I would suggest still extending it 2 years, but I was talking to Matt about it. And so we were talking about how the timetables still unfold in a very strange way. So you have 60 days to apply for the SUP, 30 days to correct deficiencies, and then 1 year to open if you're applying on a built site, which the vast majority of our applicants were on a built site. So 2 years would certainly extend it past it, or a way to shorten it would be to say it's good for 14 months from the date upon which the first SUP is approved, the first special use permit for that lottery is approved, because that would extend it 2 months past the date certain by which that entity has to open their doors or commence construction.
Would that require simply putting 14 months in place of the 1 year in subparagraph F on page 6? Or does that not do it?
Let me look.
Or is that the wrong place?
Yeah, I mean, we would want Matt to write the language specifically if we're going to use the date upon which the first special use permit is approved. Because we'd want to make sure that how you draft that is, sound. Either way, it's got to be brought back for introduction if we want to make the correction. So Matt could make the change. I could make it in the way of a motion now, but we could have Matt draft the language specific. The only other issue that Matt brought up was, in the ordinance, we have an annual lottery at the beginning of each year, but it's Director Kieselbach's discretion as to whether or not we have it. We were supposed to, the ordinance says Director Kieselbach could have called the lottery at the beginning of this year, but he chose not to. But so we talked about that language. I don't see it being a direct issue or conflict. That was just something that Matt brought up to float by us all.
I see staff member Menser has a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, we did
Oh.
notice an opening because the ordinance does require it the second Tuesday in January. We had no applicants, so then therefore we didn't have any applications to review.
Thank you, Mark, for that correction. That's correct. That's what Matt said. He said it was noticed and that it was open, but albeit no applicants, because we do have the outstanding permits for grow facilities, secure transporters, the labs, etc. So,
Mr. Menser, did you still need to comment? No, okay.
so I guess will move then that we amend item subsection 4 on page 7 to strike 1 year and insert for 14 months.
Where are you talking about?
Page 7.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to go back to the prior packet if you want to look at the markup.
Okay.
The packet this evening has a clean copy. If you go back to the 414 packet, you can actually look at the markups. And it might be on page 6 because it's a clean copy.
What's the section number?
I can flip over and go to the clean copy if you want.
Yeah. And
I believe it's page 6 on the clean copy. Is that?
Yep. And which section number? Like 5? Like we're talking F? We're talking 4.4F or under section 5?
It's on page 7 in the clean copy. It's sub item 4 on page 7. If everyone wants to refer to it.
Oh, okay. I was on the wrong.
States the Director of Community Planning and Development shall maintain a record of the lottery results and order of drawing for each facility type for 1 year after the lottery occurred, after which time they will expire and be invalid. The subsequent sentence refers to the fact that we have this lottery that occurs at the beginning of each year that Mark just spoke to. So we could have had someone foreseeably apply for a provisioning center in any one of the overlay districts. And that would have been a valid lottery, but it would take second, it would fall second in order to an existing lottery that has not expired.
Why don't we go ahead and if adopt this amendment, and then we'll adopt this for introduction, and then have Matt, if necessary, clean it up and bring it back next time for either final approval or do it again.
Yeah, so I'll just make the motion simple. I move to amend sub-item 4 on page 7 to provide that the lottery results shall not expire until 14 months after the first special use permit is approved within an overlay district.
Is there a second to that? Someone's light lit up.
Or-
Did you second it, Kathy? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Do we need further discussion or can we move on adoption on this amendment?
Let me just provide one other clarification that I talked to Matt about. There's another benefit here because Matt suggested that if we do this, what we do is we require the applicants that are waiting. So if you're in slot 2, 3, or 4 in an overlay, you have to continue filing an annual renewal fee. So that $5,000 fee. So it would actually bring in revenue to the township. And that would be our way of knowing if they are still actively pursuing being considered as a second or third place lottery winner.
Instead of just holding a place, right?
Yes. So we don't have to wonder. We would actually know. Mark and Peter would know, and then we would actually have more revenue.
Now, that didn't require any other change. That was just a comment, correct?
I'm just making a comment before we vote because Matt will probably mark up other sections of the ordinance to reflect that.
Okay. All
It's a needed change to correspond to the change that I just made with
Okay.
my motion.
All right. Mark, did you have a comment on that? Mr. Kieselbach, you lit up for a second.
No, I don't have.
Okay. All right. All right. And if there's no further discussion on the amendment, we'll vote on the amendment. Mr. Dreyfus?
Yes. Okay. Trustee Opsimer,
Yes.
trustee Sunland,
Yes.
Wazinski,
Yes.
supervisor Stika,
Yes.
clerk Dreyfus votes yes, treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
and trustee Jackson.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, now we're back to the motion as amended. Is there any further discussion on the motion, which is to adopt this for introduction with the change that was put forth in that amendment? Okay, then we need a vote.
Trustee Sunland,
Yes.
trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
supervisor Stika,
Yes.
clerk Dreyfus votes yes, treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
trustee Jackson,
Yes.
trustee Opsimer.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We now move on to C, special use permit number
Oh,
19.
point, I need to correct, we just didn't quite clarify. Can we get the motion that, the original motion, the amendment, once more? We just didn't quite catch that clearly.
Which part didn't you catch clearly?
The amendment that was first made, the amendment that we passed, that.
Oh, okay, the 14, whatever, okay. Dan, could you restate that again for? Brett?
Yeah, I'll restate it
you.
slowly for Betty. I move to amend page 7, sub-item 4 to strike 1 year and insert 14 months after the first special use permit is approved for the winner, the lottery winner within the overlay district.
That is what we voted on, okay. All right, now
You
we're
have the
moving on to
support.
C.
Thank you. Who did
Betty,
support
get
that?
that? Okay.
Who supported that motion?
Who supported the original motion?
Sunland.
Supported it, I
Oh,
think?
the amendment was supported by Sunland.
Yeah.
Correct. Thank you.
Original
it.
motion, I think, was Jackson, is that right?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, now we move on to C, which is the special use permit number 19141, the Cured Leaf TC Inc. Miss Jackson.
I move to adopt the resolution approving special use permit number 19141 to establish a commercial medical marijuana provisioning center at 3520 Okemos Road.
Support.
Supported by Clerk Dreyfus. Do you need to comment on that, any staffers? If not, we'll have Ms. Jackson. Okay, go ahead, Pat.
This is a project that has been thoroughly vetted by the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission, I believe, has recommended approval of this, the introduction of the cured leaf project in this built facility at the corner of Okemos, I believe, in Hazlet. For actually a 2,282 square foot commercial provisioning center at this location. So I support on the particularly on the basis of the Planning Commission's approval and recommendation.
For the public, I'll note this is the southernmost little suites within that strip mall. All right, any further discussion? I guess we're ready to approve it.
Trustee Wazinski.
Yes.
Supervisor Stika.
Yes.
Clerk Dreyfus votes yes. Treasurer DeShane.
Yes.
Trustee Jackson.
Yes.
Trustee Opsimer.
Yes.
And Trustee Sunland.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you all very much. Now moving on to item D, under 12, which is hazard pay. Ms. Sunland. No?
Yeah.
You want to read the motion?
Oh, okay. Move to adopt a one-time $1,000 hazard payment in June to Meridian Township frontline emergency responders.
Support.
Supported by Ms. Wazinski. Manager Walsh, you want to talk about this at all?
I covered it at the last meeting on Supervisor Stika. We have $100,000 budgeted for contract negotiations. It looks like, and that was set aside for 312 arbitration. We're not going to be spending any of that as we budgeted. And so we thought a good use of that would be about $70,000 as noted. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Ms. Marks, you have any further comments, or did the manager cover it all?
Township manager covered it beautifully.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any issues they want to bring up? Yes, Mr. DeShane.
Yeah, I fully support this motion. I think it's a great idea. It's good use of the money we had set aside for the 312 mediations. You know, hazard pay is the right term because our first responders are out there in very hazardous conditions. Every door they open, they risk infection. My only concern is that if we're going to call this hazard pay, if you look at $1,000 over 12 weeks, that's actually less than $100 a week. So I'd hope in a couple of months we come back and visit this again, because as I had mentioned earlier, all indications are that this hazard isn't going away. This virus isn't going away anytime soon. Our frontline responders are going to be facing this all through the summer into the fall. So I think this is a good first step to take, but by no means should we think that the job is done. Just as their job isn't done, our job of finding monies for extra hazard pay isn't done yet. But for now, for tonight, this is the right thing to do, and I fully support
it. Ms. Wazinski.
I'd just like to thank our heroic first responders, putting their families and themselves in front line for the rest of us and residents. And like Treasurer Shane said, it's every door, every time they walk outside. It's it's really impressive, and I really think from the bottom of my heart, I would not be opposed to readdressing this come future. We don't know. We have no idea what this pandemic's going to bring. We have no idea when we start releasing folks back into the workforce, if we're going to get another spike in both, positive tests and in deaths. So I again just want to thank. I think $1,000 is minimal, and at the minimum, and maybe readdress at a later date as well.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes, I just like to add that I've learned that this kind of payment is not merely a reward for the willingness of these workers to put themselves on the line for this kind of hazardous situation, but also it helps defray costs that they incur in trying to manage their home lives, their family lives, and their jobs, which require them or certainly ask them to put themselves in danger. And so it is certainly appropriate, as others have said, to include consideration of hazard pay for these first responders and under these circumstances.
Our community has been very, very lucky because so far, as Chief Hamill said earlier, we don't have a first responder that has come down with the COVID-19, but it could still happen. So they are more at risk than most of us. We're virtually all of us. Okay, anyone else? And we need a vote.
Yeah, mute, clerk.
Clerk, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I know it
All right.
sometimes goes off. Clerk Dreyfus votes yes. Supervisor Stika,
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
Trustee Jackson,
Yes.
Trustee Opsimer,
Yes.
Trustee Sunland,
Yes.
and Trustee Wazinski.
Yes.
The motion for hazard pay passes 7-0.
Thank you very much. We now move on to 12E, Newton Road Sanitary Sewer Public Improvement SAD number 54, resolution number 5, which we had a public hearing on earlier today. Someone want to make that motion? We got Hollywood Squares here in front of me. I'm looking. I can't see any hands. Clerk Dreyfus.
Move to approve the Newton Road Public Sanitary Sewer Improvement Special Assessment District number 54, resolution number 5, which approves the special assessment role, designates the project as Newton Road Public Sanitary Sewer Improvement Special Assessment District number 54, the assessment role as the Newton Road Public Sanitary Sewer Improvement Special Assessment District number 54 assessment role, and the district as the Newton Road Public Sanitary Sewer Improvement Special Assessment District number 54, adopts the amount of $87,895.12 as the final amount for the assessment roll, and orders and directs the assessment roll to be paid and collected.
Support.
Okay, is that Ms. Wazinski that seconded?
Ms.
Was that you?
Jackson.
Oh, it was Jackson. I should have known. All right. You want to speak on this, clerk, or you're all set?
I think we're all set. We had a discussion that Mr. Perry provided, gave us an overview. And we were working with residents to try to keep the cost down as part of their concerns. And so this motion helps to move forward with what the residents wanted in terms of the sanitary sewer.
Anyone else? All right, do we need a vote? Clerk Dreyfus.
Treasurer
You did
DeShane.
work today.
Yes.
Trustee Jackson,
Yes.
Trustee Opsimer,
Yes.
Trustee Sunland,
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Supervisor Stika,
Yes.
Clerk Dreyfus votes yes. Motion passes 7-0.
Our attorney who's on with us today, Mr. Fay, you appreciate this comment. You know, it used to be long ago, centuries ago, lawyers got paid by the word. And I think statutes that create these special assessment districts were obviously written by lawyers back in the day when you're paid for by the word,
Yeah.
because they're awfully long. And I think if we could modernize them, it would be very helpful. Anyway,
That's also why it takes 4 different resolutions to do something so simple.
exactly. Okay, we now go on to number F, ratification of patrol unit labor agreement number for the years 2020 to 2024. Mr. DeShane.
I move to authorize Supervisor Ron Steica and Clerk Brett Reifus to sign the 5-year agreement with the Meridian Township Police Patrol Unit, and hereby express our utmost appreciation to our negotiating team.
Support.
Supported by Ms. Wozinski. You want to comment on this, Mr. DeShane?
I'm really glad that this is before us, and I want to say again, thanks to our negotiating team. We avoided having to go into the 312 mediation. We've got an agreement. I would like to hear from the township manager if he has a moment to maybe give us a summary and say a little bit more about the agreement and how we came to terms.
Okay, maybe he and or Ms. Marks, up to him. Mr. Walsh.
Yeah, so this is a really historic evening in many ways. What's before you tonight's a 5-year agreement, 2% per year, but it changes. For a long time, Meridian Township has approved contracts and pay as hopefully we can pay them off as we go. But as you know, we've taken on a lot of debt over the last 3 or 4 decades. Tonight's contract is a pay-as-you-go contract. Tonight's contract changes really the roadmap going forward for many years, for many decades for this community. I hope you can appreciate what's before you. I want to thank Director Marks, our attorney, Lizzie Mills from the Fahey firm, Chief Plaga, and Mr. Perry. If this is approved from this point forward, multipliers for our pension reduced from 275 to 175. We eliminate retiree health care, but we pay 7% per year, pay as we go, to set that aside for new officers. We also contribute 10% defined contribution plan. Now, what does that all mean? What that means is right now, if you look at patrol pension, we pay 24%. With this 24% of payroll. With this plan, we will pay about 2%. Because the plan right now, this plan as presented, is about a 10.38% cost of payroll. But the officers pay 8% in for their pension. That doesn't change. So the net is, once you take the 10% off, the net is 2% on this going towards pension, a 2% difference. It changes going forward because we believe, from what we've seen from remember, the firefighters took the 1.75 3 years ago. And what have we seen? You know, this isn't just pulling numbers out of the sky, which sometimes you get characterized as doing by people at times. This is really based on facts. Go back and look at the fire department in the 3 years since they changed to a 175. Do you know what our long-term liability is in the last 3 years? It's negative. We're actually in a positive. It's over 100% funded. It really changes where we're going as a community. So to recap, it's 5 years, 2 years, 2% per year. The multiplier reduces from 275 to 175 for new hires. We give 7% towards healthcare and 10% towards defined contribution. Now, we've done an assessment, again, historic evening. We've done an assessment of what the cost is for pension and healthcare right now. And by the way, before I get there, and we have determined that between all 3 unions, this will save the township. And I hope Citizen Bowling's watching, I really do, because these changes will save the township just under $40 million over the next 25 years. We will not be going with long-term debt. We'll be paying as we go. And here's an important note. Can we still attract candidates? this is a very attractive proposal. This is a very attractive contract for new employees. And our first test is a young lady from DeWitt, who you may have heard about today, that we're trying to recruit here. And I can tell you, she's sharp, she's articulate, and she's probably one of the best we could ever hire. And we put this proposal to her. Now, keep in mind, other communities also are interested in this young lady from DeWitt. And we put this proposal in front of her, and she's very enthused about it. So our first toll gate going forward with can we still recruit by lowering the multiplier, she's all in at this point and hoping that something can come together in the next few weeks with sponsorship. But so this is really, really encouraging for us. When we look at this and what we'll be paying, do you know, police command, do you know what we pay as a part of their pension for payroll? It's 60%. 60%. And this is going to change us. It might not change for this board and this manager, but going forward for future elected officials and future appointed officials in this community, this is going to be a win-win and a win for our officers. It's a great financial stability to them. It gives them a defined contribution and a defined benefit plan and 7% per year of payroll to put away for health care when they need it. So I'm really proud of our team. I'm thankful for our patrol unit for sending this on as they ratified it. And I would hand it back to you, Supervisor Stajka.
Okay, thank you. Any arguments one way or the other from any of the board members? Ms. Jackson?
I just have a question, Mr. Walsh. Is this the last contract we needed to negotiate for this year?
No, trustee. No, excuse me. No, we still have, we had 7. And if this is ratified tonight, we have 6 accomplished. We still have the fire department, but I believe we are, if I'll give you a football analogy, we're not on the 1-yard line. We're probably on the 6-inch line. So we're very, very close. And I think we'll have a fire contract to you in the next probably 4 weeks. And again, they've been great to deal with, and we'll have a good contract with them as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I would just comment that I think we, the community owes a great debt of gratitude to both our staff in terms of Mrs. Marks, Mr. Walsh, and the Fahey firm, and everyone else who was involved in negotiating this on our side, and the police patrol because their team, because it was a really good contract to come together on and make for a lot of labor peace here for a long time and do well for all of our citizens. We appreciate it on both sides of the table, so to speak. All right, and we need a vote, Mr. Dreyfus.
Trustee Jackson,
Yes.
trustee Opsimer,
Yes.
trustee Sunland,
Yes.
trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Supervisor Stajka,
Yes.
Clerk Dreyfus votes yes. Treasurer DeShane.
You're on mute. Bill. Bill.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Very good, everyone. We have another item that was added on last minute by me. And that's a resolution commemorating Older Americans Month, something we've done in the past, especially last year. Is there a motion? Mr. DeShane.
I move to approve the resolution commemorating Older Americans Month.
As an older American, I appreciate that. It's seconded by Ms. Wazinski. Okay. As an older American, I truly appreciate that. The resolution basically honors our older citizens who are so important throughout this community in terms of our life and our experiences, our lifestyle, and our families, and every other way. So I don't think we'll have to read it all, but it's they deserve our recognition, and that's what this is for. Any other comments? Okay, then, because we can't do this by simple hand, we'll still have to ask Brett to go through the motions. Go ahead, Brett.
Trustee Opsimer,
Yes.
trustee Sunland,
Yes.
trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Supervisor Stika,
Yes,
clerk Dreyfus votes yes, treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
trustee Jackson,
As a proud older American, I vote yes.
oh, I thought I was the only one.
motion passes
You fooled me,
7-0. Older people included.
Thank you, Clerk Dreyfus. I'm going to exercise my plenary authority here to do a 5-minute break. Okay, I'm not sure how you do that, Mr. Geeves.
Might want to, the time, we're breaking from 7:23.
Figure it out, sir.
Board is taking a 5-minute recess. It's, I think, the official term.
I'm not video this time.
You know, video?
I'm not on video.
5 minutes from 7:23. Okay.
And during
Hello. Mr. Geebies, are we off on indefinitely or can I call it back anytime?
You can call them back anytime, sir.
Okay. Ms. Sunland, we're ready. I think we're all back. We're now moving on to 13, and we have, it's really one matter, although it's listed twice because of the nature of it. Special use permit number 19181 Hudson Senior Living Pine Village. Also will include discussion of mixed-use plan unit development number 190. Yeah, and 19034 Hudson Senior Living. Okay, who wants to start? Yeah, where are you?
I can
There
start.
you are, Mark. Yes, sir.
No, this special use permit and this mixed use plan unit development is for same project as commonly known as Pine Village. It's on the western end of the Hazlet Village Square development, which is at the southwest corner of Hazlet or Hazlet Marsh Road. The project size is approximately 10 acres. It's zoned C2, which allows for the special use permit and the mixed use development. The last time this project was before the board did have concerns with the project, and the applicant went back and has redesigned the project, trying to address those concerns that the board previously had on this. I'm just going to briefly go through them for you. We did have the plans in your packet. If you looked at them and seen them, the basically orientation of the building has changed somewhat. It was originally more rectangle in shape, and now it's a U shape. The senior living portion of this has been put to the west side so that the entrance for that faces to the west. The additional commercial space that's been added is along the east side of the building. It's along that eastern entrance drive that comes in off Hazlet Road. The size of the building has changed a little bit. It's been increased from a 3-story building to a 4-story building. About 1,000 square feet additional space has been added from what you saw before. The overall height of the building is about 55 feet. As the board remembers, the mixed use plan unit development ordinance was changed for this Hazlet area to allow for buildings to go as tall as 60 feet. So it's within that limits of the height. And as I said, they've added more commercial space along the eastern side of the building. They've increased it by about 5,000 square feet. It was 2,600, and now it's 7,600. 7 tenant spaces are being proposed for that. The number of residential units hasn't changed from the original proposal, still is at 133 units. The impervious surface has changed somewhat since they went up on that smaller footprint. It's at almost 26% hard surface coverage, impervious surface coverage for this site. There are a couple waivers that they are asking, and we outlined those for you in your packet. The one is the setback from Hazlet Road. The requirement is 100 feet from the center line. The building along Hazlet Road will be at a little over 62 feet from the center line. The other one is the parking. Under the normal standards for this mixed use with the residential and the commercial, we calculated, and this is allowing for the reduction in parking spaces because they have provided bike parking spaces. They would require 283 spaces. They're proposing 139 parking spaces. They will need a waiver for the pathway as it encroaches into the setback for the wetland. That final design on the pathway is still be working out, so we don't know exactly the number for that setback, but it will need a waiver on that. And then the last waiver is for the number of wall signs. Each tenant space gets a wall sign, so that would be 7 wall signs. They're proposing 6 additional wall signs on the building. So there would have to be a waiver for that. And I know Jeff Buck, who's representing the applicant, is also with us tonight if you had any questions specifically for him on the changes that they've done for this project.
All right, Mr. Opsmer.
Okay, well, I want to thank Jeff Buck and Cypress for working with us. This is a much improved plan. I don't have any concerns over the waivers. I appreciate the large waiver being requested for the parking, as always. And wetland C is now not being impacted under the new site plan, whereas it was under the previous one. One of the other benefits is getting up to 74% impervious, which is an increase from 67% on the former plan. So those are all very good positives. I also appreciate, Mr. Buck, I also appreciate you working with us to actually work on a true mixed use project. I was skeptical at the beginning, just because many of these types of facilities have their model, and mixed use is not a part of that model. So I really appreciate you working with us. My only concern is concerning the depth and the overall square footage on the commercial. So for the anchor tenant, the square footage is very small. I'm not sure what it is exactly, but it's, just to give context, it's smaller than the Hazlitt Bigby just down the road. And so for that anchor tenant, I would really like to see a substantial increase in square footage. I'd like that to be something where you could actually attract a restaurant, or at the very least, a Grand Traverse Pie Company or something of that model. And for the other tenants, I would like to see more depth taken. I know you're trying to put some of the community resources for the facility on the ground floor, but I'm concerned about the viability given some of the limitations with the site plans. I appreciate the floor to ceiling height so that there can be a true environment within these storefronts, and they're not just your run-of-the-mill strip mall with a 10-foot ceiling height and a drop-down ceiling. But I would like to see, especially the anchor tenant, become something that can really attract a destination tenant. So those are my initial comments. I don't know if Jeff can comment and give us any insight on that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys letting me speak tonight, and speaking to the tenant spaces there on the first floor. They could be combined too. What's great about this building is if a tenant does come that's larger and wants to take more space, they could take the different tenant spaces that we have listed. We're hoping to get kind of that anchor cafe tenant, which might flow into that wellness studio if they need more space. So it's really a flexible building there on the first floor. And, when we start talking to the different tenants and hearing, their plans and how they want to lay their space out, we are definitely open to all of that and listening to them.
Jeff, is there anything on the ground floor that's part of the overall community accommodation for the residents that live there? Is there anything that can be moved to the first floor? I understand, you're going to want to have the dining hall and kitchen on the ground floor, but is there anything that could be moved just to increase the depth of the commercial space?
I know we're a little tight on space on floors 2 through 4, but it's definitely something we can look at to maybe moving, the library or fitness space somewhere else in the building that would then, kind of free up some depth on that first floor.
Okay, I would really appreciate seeing that, just because when I compare the overall square footage, I get that you can expand, side to side, but still, to get a true restaurant, if you wanted to get a true restaurant in there, you're going to need more depth than, what it currently has. So anything that can be done on that wing that faces east, that eastern elevation where you have the commercial, to increase the depth would be fantastic. And then the other question I had was, the elevation shows a streetscape with street trees, which I like. But when I look at the colored aerial view, it just shows a traditional narrow pathway along the commercial fronts on that eastern facing side. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, we're gonna add as many trees and kind of green space as we can. It's gonna take some more planning once we kind of figure out again that tenant there on the corner and how they wanna, do their outdoor space. But the key is to get as many trees and bushes and flowers and green space, especially along that eastern front and along Hazlitt, as much as we can fit in there. The colored site plan is sparse. We're gonna do a lot more than that. So I see a lot more and more going along with what we show in the rendering.
Okay, that's good. And then working with CATA, and I'm happy to facilitate that to put that station back in as a component of it. And my only final thought on the elevation, I really appreciate you guys mixing up the architecture so that it looks more organic. Similar to what we did with the site plan in downtown Okemos. The initial kind of illustration elevation that you shared with some of us was a little bit warmer on the corner, I thought. Just the brick tone where you were kind of going for a traditional orange brick, and it just felt warmer and more welcoming. This elevation in our packet, just it feels a little colder and darker on the corner, but so that's just one aesthetic thought that struck me looking at it. But I appreciate all of the adaptations and everything that you've done to work with us on this, and this is definitely going in the right direction.
Okay, Mr. DeShane.
Thanks, Jeff, for joining us tonight in our meeting. I too want to thank you for paying attention at our last meeting and coming back with a significantly revised and improved proposal. There's several things I like about it, the new revised proposal. I like the way you've turned the building around so that when you're coming in to the existing plaza, you would see this strip of commercial space, apartments above it. Really is a downtown feel that we're looking for this. I like your higher ceiling height, the 14 feet. It makes for much more interesting commercial spaces that can be developed there. And the overall height of the building taking up a story. We did our PICA changes well over a year ago to allow this kind of development because we wanted more intensive use of the space, and you're taking advantage of it there. I like the fact you've tripled the amount of commercial space from 2,600 to 6,600. That's the mixed use we're looking for here, not a token mixed use devoted to the senior apartments. It's really mixed use that the Hazlitt community will take advantage of. And I agree with Trustee Opsimer. Ideally, we want to have a space you could get a restaurant in, a cafe at least, maybe a sit-down restaurant of sorts, and it would have a tremendous draw with the surrounding neighborhoods. And you're going to need more than 2,000 square feet of that. I also like the more diverse unit types that you've got. More of the 2 bedrooms, you've got units with a den. You really have more diverse unit types. I wish there were more of them, but the fact you've added some, it's a real good sign. I also like the fact that you left the wetland C unaltered with the revised plan. That's good. The 25% less impervious space, I'm not crazy about. We'd like more impervious space, but I realize there are trade-offs that have to be made. In terms of the waivers, 60 foot or 62 foot from Hazlitt Road, middle of Hazlitt Road, compared to 100 foot, that isn't a problem for me either. In fact, it will help slow down traffic as it's coming from the west towards the 4 corners there. Buildings closer to the street tend to do that. Parking, again, we know that we've had parking regulations, but overall, we've been trying to size down parking so we don't end up with these developments with these massive parking lots around them. I like the fact you've got 2 access points to the inner urban on each side of the development. That's a good sign. That inner urban is very popular and people use it, and it'd be great that they can have better access to it through the space you've defined. The additional wall signs actually make sense. If we're going to have commercial space, we need to let these commercial entities advertise that they are here and open for business and welcome new customers. So overall, I like this revised project a lot. I do have one question for you regarding what's happened since we last talked to you, which is this COVID-19 pandemic. Where do you stand in terms of your financing, and what do your investors say based on the economic problems many companies are having in the wake of the health pandemic?
Yeah, so we're talking to our bank lenders and our investors, daily and following along the COVID-19. Luckily, this sort of project in senior housing is a little different than what has been impacted the most. It seems to be more nursing homes and kind of that higher care where there's a lot more interaction. And these buildings, like we said before, are very independent. So it's very able-bodied people and living on their own, but has kind of that safety net. But so far, like I said, we've talked to our lending sources, and there might be a couple hiccups. We don't know when we're going to come totally out of this, but we're just taking it day by day. But things are looking pretty good, so we're staying positive.
Glad to hear that, and thank you again for taking our changes seriously and bringing us back a revised proposal that's much improved over the first one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Others, Ms. Wazinski, and you're muted.
Thanks for the heads up. Thank you, Mr. Buck. I would concur with both Treasurer and Trustee Absmer that you really listened and took into consideration our concerns and implemented them in your new design. I really like the increased commercial. I really like the green space that connects to the pathway. The increased height of the first floor. Also a little concerned about the size of individual units, but you mentioned that they could, that can be variable, and maybe thinking about the depth of some of those units if we do want a true restaurant or something that may need more depth in there. So that's something that I also wanted to just say thank you for thinking about that and maybe considering that. I like how you took into consideration the different facades. Again, maybe a little bit different variation would be ideal, but I think the rendering you have is good. It's got some of the same lines all across, so even something similar. I'm not an architect by any means, but just changing those up a little bit to give that individuality to those individual commercial spaces, if you will. So other than that, the only question I have, and I know we're always trying to decrease impervious ground, is the reduction in parking spaces. Just want to confirm that took into account for visitors, for that commercial component, not just the residents, and how you might have calculated that.
Yeah, it is. There's a parking calculation that's on the one sheet that takes into account for the commercial space, and we increased the parking from the last time. So
Okay.
Even though that service has gotten smaller, it's actually increased parking. We had 128 parking spaces last time, and now we're up to 139.
Excellent, great. I think it creates a really walkable area. So thank you again.
Thanks.
The board members, Mr. Dreyfus, you're muted.
So I just had just a little bit of a clarification. I was going to ask about the commercial retail aspect. So just to confirm, the total is 7,620 feet. That is the total amount of commercial available?
Plus or minus, yeah, because the cafe is a little bit more flexible because it kind of comes into our space. So it could be a little bit more, it could be a little less depending on that tenant and how much they want to take and be a part of that corner.
By cafe, you're referring to something that would be like a restaurant or something of that sort, something that serves food, pretty much.
Right, coffee, sandwiches, food, yeah, all that kind of sort.
Okay, so that might account for one or two of, they're saying that possibly 7 units then, right? Each one's approximately 1,000 square feet, something like that, 1,100, 1,200 square feet, something like that, approximately 11 square per individual tenant, and maybe 1 or 2 could be combined if necessary.
Right, each little box is about 650 square feet, so, you know, and the doors can be switched up. It's very flexible space, so there could be larger tenants, smaller tenants, depending on what the market demands.
Okay, so aside from a restaurant or a cafe or something like that, is there any targeting of particular types of businesses that you're looking to attract to that area? Given the fact that 133 units with seniors, I'm not sure that that's going to create I don't know if that alone, I doubt that would create a financially viable business model unless it was just for those 133 people. Obviously, it's been vacant for many years in that area and trying to get different types of retailers there. So I'm just wondering what kind of thought is put into targeting certain types of businesses that would now feel be more successful in that location.
Yeah, so some of the tenants that we're going to be targeting is, the salon spa space is something that we usually include in our buildings, and this could be a small business of a Meridian that come in and haircuts and all sorts of different things. So that's one of the ones that we're targeting. Also, again, an art-based space. So I'm not sure what that would be, but there's kind of a group that's local to my city that has, they do paintings, pottery, all sorts of different art activities that would work well with the tenants of our building, but also kids and other adults in the community at large. So that's one of the other spaces that we're targeting. Really, again, food-based tenants. It could be maybe a small bank branch or a lawyer's office. I know that there's a dance studio in the building currently. That could also be a fun tenant to have, which could then perhaps replace the fitness space we need, because during the day, the tenants of the building could use that space, and at night, kids could come in for their dance lessons and stuff. So we're trying to think outside of the box and kind of reach out to see what the community wants to see there and what tenants might fit that need. So,
thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Ms. Jackson? You're muted, Pat. You're still muted.
Mute button.
There it is. Okay. Mr. Buck, I too appreciate the conceptual changes that you've made and some of the specific design changes. But I'm a little confused maybe and concerned with this view of the elevations and what looks like would be the northern elevation facing Hazlitt Road. So it's to the to the right of the photograph, and what looks like a solid brick wall down to from the top to the first floor. Is that actually the case, or are there windows in that wall?
I gotta look at my floor plans to see what's above. That is bathroom and bedrooms going up, and that window that you can see facing the east is the bedroom window. And then half the wall is the rest of that bedroom, and then it goes into the bathroom. So right now there aren't windows planned for that section of the building. But if you look at the floor plans as it moves further west, windows start to get put in because the units kind of get spinned. So the living rooms would be looking over Hazlitt Road, and those would have larger windows.
Okay.
If you, our very last page of our packet has the elevation. It's a black and white sketch of the north-facing Hazlet Road. There are windows fairly close to the corner.
Okay.
There's like some fake little inlets on the very, very corner.
Then I find that a positive change then.
More patterns at it.
Yes, yes. I approve of that addition of windows looking out over Hazlet Road. I just didn't see them in my view of the design.
Anyone else? Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Buck, I just want to thank you. I've done a little research on my own into the Traverse City site where my aunt resides, and you run a great facility up there. So I just want to thank you for your interest in our community. And speaking on behalf of Mr. Kiesebach and Mr. Menser and Mr. Lane, we appreciate how well you've worked with us over the past few months. So thank you.
Thanks, appreciate that, and we look forward to working with you guys further. So there was one thing I just wanted to bring up, is that we have been working on a brownfield plan. We haven't been able to submit and kind of move forward with it because of the COVID-19, but I just wanted to put it out there that we are working on it. There was a dry cleaners in that building that will be tearing down. So back in '96, a phase 2 was done, but it was very limited. And there was some chlorinated solvent found contamination at the property. And also there's suspected that there's an underground storage tank that had to do with that business. But we've been working with Triterra, and they're continuing their due diligence on that. And hopefully once they can get out there and start performing work again, we'll have a plan and submit that to the BRA. But I just wanted to let you guys know that we were working on that.
Thank you for that. All right. I would say that to borrow from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, Jeff Buck, lend me your ears. You listen better than most of our applicants, and we truly appreciate that. The changes between what you came with originally and where we are now are just very, very satisfying. And I agree with the comments you heard from the various board members tonight that spoke out. So I would like to see a little more diversity on that side that was talked about by a couple of members. Other than that, it's looking pretty good. Are we all set, members? All right, then we'll look forward to seeing you again, Mr. Buck.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys' time, and everybody stay safe and healthy.
Thank you. Okay, now we're ready to go on to comments from the public. If we have any members out there, Mr. Geebies.
We do have a couple people who have been hanging out in the attendees area for the entire meeting, and they are, of course, welcome to raise their hand via the toolbar if they have any public comment to make at this time. And I'm not seeing any. We'll give the telephone number one more time if someone would like to comment via telephone, 517-349-1232, and we can take public comment via telephone. Still no hands in the attendees, so I'm guessing that we don't need to promote anyone to talk there. And we'll give about 30 seconds for that telephone one more time, 517-349-1232. I'm sorry, 517-349-1232.
All right, well, if a call comes in, I'm going to start the other matters from the board, which will start with the treasurer's report. And if a call comes in, I can get that after Mr.
There's a call coming in right now.
Oh, well, then we'll go to it straight. Okay. We need the individual to identify themselves with their address, please. Well, is it happening, Mr. Geebies?
It is happening. I'm going to pull the call up right now.
Okay.
This is a public caller. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, everybody. This is Bill McConnell, 4376 Manitou here in Okemos. Thanks for the discussion of the Pine Village of Meridian plan. Got a lot of interesting stuff in it. I'm still kind of focused on how people who are not in cars are going to get from that site into the adjoining properties. And I'm looking at that sort of intersection at that southeast corner and thinking if that could be designed in a way that could facilitate that, that would be an improvement in my view. Maybe even a mid-block crossing between there and Hazlitt Road, given the sorts of mobility choices that the residents are likely to choose. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Is that all you had? All right.
Yep.
Anyone else, Mr. Geeves?
There are no other callers at this time.
All right, now we'll go to Mr. DeShane and his report. You got on mute.
Thank you, Supervisor. You are correct. You are getting more financial reports from me than you received last year. If you watch the news at all, you know it's been financial markets have been really crazy the past few months, and so I like to get all of our finances out before the public, before the board, so they can see exactly where our money is, where it's being held, what interest we're making on it, and so forth. Our money is
By the way, Phil, you've taken your picture off the screen. So there's the buttons are next to each other for muting and.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay.
So all of our money is very safe. We follow state law. It's in safe instruments, CDs, and bonds. We are not invested in the stock market, nor are we allowed to, nor are we want to be. But the money is safe, and it's accounted for in these reports you get from me. There is about $12 million more in the money under our fixed investment than you've seen in past reports. And that, of course, is our road funding. We received $12 million in bond proceeds, which has now been reinvested in 12 different CDs. And those will be spent $4 million a year to meet the commitment we made to our residents to invest 100% of that money into our road improvement plans. Mr. Perry has that plan. Hopefully we'll see some construction as soon as May or June, but that's the additional $12 million there. As I mentioned in previous meetings, in the past 12 months, we've seen our interest rate fall about 2 full percentage points. And that impacts us. For example, we better part of $5 million is our reserve fund, and 2% over $5 million represents $100,000 in revenue for the township. But 0.2%, 1/10 of that is about $11,000, 2.2%. So that's a significant loss to the amount of income we are going to get in interest income. It's one of the many ways we're going to have to tighten our belt over the next year and years beyond that, because the Fed basically has zero interest rate right now, and that's not going to change at all for fear we're not only going into recession, but possibly a depression. Now, on a more positive note from the treasurer, I'm currently in discussions with the management team about the feasibility of having an outdoor payment kiosk all summer that will be located in the Farmers Market Pavilion, that be essentially open from Memorial Day to Labor Day. This kiosk would allow residents to pay their taxes and utility bills without having to enter Township Hall. This adds more safety for our residents and for our employees. As we know, the more you can avoid confined spaces, the less likely you are to pick up an infectious disease like the COVID-19. So this will be staffed by treasurer and utility bill employees Monday to Friday, essentially 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. In the event of bad storms, we'll move it back inside. We're not going to risk anyone's health or safety in a thunderstorm. But the point would be to have it out there and to make it available so residents can drive up, see the sign, and pull up very close to it, get out of the car, and make their payment without having to come into Township Hall. Mr. Geeves and I have been talking about also adding a drive-up component to that as well. We haven't worked that out yet, but that would be great. The problem with it is it's hard to combine pedestrian walk-up with vehicle traffic, but we'll be creative about that. And so we'll have something more for the board at a future meeting on that kiosk. it will also be available for other departments if they want to come out there, maybe some assessing or building department or clerk's office. If the space will be big enough to allow for additional customer service beyond utility bills and taxes. But that will be the first purposes out there. And I'm looking forward to giving a higher level of service and a safer level of service for our residents this summer. That's all I have. Thank you.
If you could hire some teenagers with roller skates to serve the cars as they come up.
Okay.
Okay. Other reports from board members? Don't see any. Are we ready to adjourn? Do we need a motion?
I move to adjourn.
Support.
Moved by Opsimer, supported by Kuzinski. All those in favor say aye. Well, raise your hand. I think we can do this one by hand. Everybody voted yes, Brett.
7-0.
All right, then we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.